sexual assault and neglect. Continue. Sorry, there was a lot of technical stuff happening all at once. And so we're going to walk you through kind of how to learn strategies that you can use for where you're at and who you are as a personality, as an individual. This is not going to be a one size fits all strategy. You guys are going to be able to choose the way you prevent violence in your community. And we're going to use the analogy of Green Dot throughout. You might be asking, well, how did you get into this role? How did you get into violence prevention? And really my passion lies is everyone has been affected at violence at some level. Whether you are a survivor of some sort of violence, whether you've witnessed violence in your lives or seen it on television and seen violence that way in your community. And so that's really what got me a passion for the work, and just having personal friends and family who have had those experiences. With that being said, if at any point you feel uncomfortable or don't want to disclose information, we want this to be a safe space for you as an individual as we're talking about these strategies. And so we want to acknowledge that as we go through the next hour and a half. Erin has gone through a lot of the Zoom features when we first started today. But I wanted to start because we will be doing a lot of polling functions today, using a poll to kind of make sure they're working, but also to kind of see who we have in the room. So our first question is, which one of these would you give up last? Okay, it looks like we have all 9 votes. I'll share these results. I will not necessarily share all the results that we asked today, but I'll give summaries of them. These are anonymous polls, so I don't know who's answered what, but it looks like caffeine for the most part is what individuals don't want to give up. I'm right there with you as I have my coffee sitting here right next to me. Kylie's smiling because she sees me in every meeting with a coffee. But very close seconds with sweets, social media, and Netflix. And so this is to really get us started on how we'll use polls throughout this time together. Are there any questions so far? If there's any in the chat, Kylie or Erin, please let me know.
I'll keep an eye on it, but we're good for now.
Okay. So I want to discuss the problem, or why we're here today. We're here because we know there are too many people who have experienced sexual assault, domestic violence, stalking, and child abuse in our community. Though most of us have heard statistics and research about sexual assault, domestic violence, stalking, and child abuse, it can be easy to stay disconnected by telling ourselves that it doesn't happen here, or I don't know anyone who's been impacted. As we go through this workshop, I think it's important that we connect to the reality that whether we know it or not, people all around us have experienced this kind of violence. So we're going to do another poll question. And as a reminder, this is going to be completely anonymous, and you don't have to respond if you don't feel comfortable. So the question we have in the poll is, have you or someone you know been impacted by violence? I'm going to relaunch the poll. So I'm not going to share this poll, but I will tell you the answer is 100%. And to me, that's very sobering in the fact that that means at some level, all of us have been affected by violence in our lives. And that's really why this program is so important to our communities, so we can be proactive in that moment to intervene if we see something occurring, or also proactive in the prevention of it ever happening in our community. And we'll talk about that as we go forward using the Green Dot strategy. So this quote on here, just one person can't change the culture of our community. Given the scope of the problem in communities across the country, in order to reduce the number of those hurting by sexual assault, domestic violence, child abuse, and stalking, there has to be a culture change in our community. The issue is too big and too widespread for just a few people to fix it. Culture change can seem like too much. It can be easy to give up before we even start because we feel like it's too big for us to take on, or we think, I'm just one person and I can't make a difference. But we know culture changes happen all the time. One of the biggest culture changes that has happened in this generation is the creation and spread of social media. Just a couple of decades ago, Facebook wasn't even invented. And now there are dozens of social media platforms that are used all over the world. How did this happen? How did the creation of social media platforms change the culture worldwide? Let's think about how a new social media platform takes off and changes our cultural norms. It starts with a single person creating a new platform, whether it's Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, or Snapchat. Is creating a new type of social media the thing that changes the culture? No, it's not. If no one actually uses it, nothing really changes. One person is not enough to change the culture. What about when a few thousand people in one part of the country take 2 minutes to create an account? Can a few thousand people change the culture around the world? No. It's really just a few people doing their own thing. It's not enough to make a necessary impact. What about if those thousands of people each get their friends to take 2 minutes to open an account? And then those friends get their friends to take 2 minutes. Then those friends get their friends. When does a new type of social media get enough uses to actually change the whole culture? How many users, posts, shares does it take? We don't know exactly when there are enough users or enough posts to create a culture change, but we do know that culture change happens when enough individual people each make the choice to take 2 minutes to open an account or post, like the world changes. So I want you to remember this analogy as we go throughout the day, because the lesson we learn from the spread of social media is that it's never one person doing one thing that changes the culture. It's when a lot of people each do something small. Little things add up to make big change. And the chat says, great knowledge with social media that I had never really thought about. Culture change is just like going viral. Yes. And there's some great videos on YouTube that shows about one person dancing in a park and all these people adding to the dance. And I think that's also kind of gives that analogy of that and just how things like that can go viral and really spread and change your culture. So with that, Kylie's going to walk us through the metaphor that we'll be using today.
Thanks. So as you think about how those small individual choices to post on social media change culture over time, I want you to think about your own community. And as Amber said earlier, community can mean a lot of different things to people. It's where you spend your time, the people that you mingle with, the different spheres in which you live. So we use this metaphor to show how prevention can work. So I want you to picture your community as you go through your daily routine. So the buildings that you see, the neighborhoods, what the houses look like, the streets, visualize those bars or restaurants where people gather, the roller rink or the movie theater, places of worship, parks and trails, maybe mountains or ocean views, whatever is in your community. Now imagine that each time someone makes a single choice to use their words or actions to hurt someone else, a small red dot appears in one of those spaces. One red dot is the moment it takes to hit someone. One red dot is a caregiver neglecting the child in their care. One red dot is the choice to have sex with someone without their consent. One red dot is when someone takes 4 or 5 minutes to use their words to humiliate or threaten or coerce someone else. Red dots are the small choices someone makes to show up unwanted outside someone's work or car. A single red dot is a small decision, just like the small decision to open a social media account. And just like enough individuals signing on to a new social media platform shifts the culture, enough single red dots have added up to create a culture that allows us unacceptable rates of sexual assault, domestic violence, stalking, and child abuse. So for this activity, I want you to think about warning signs, specific behaviors that you could notice that lead up to sexual assault, domestic violence, stalking, or child abuse. We're going to send you into breakout rooms, and this will allow you to have small group discussion. We're going to assign each breakout room a specific form of violence, okay? So I think with the numbers that we have, it'll kind of be pairs, essentially. What do you think, Amber?
Sounds good.
Okay, so we want you to think about that form of violence and things that you could notice as a bystander. So somebody not involved directly, but somebody just observing it, not the person doing harm, not the person receiving harm, okay? The name of your breakout room will be the form of violence. So when your invitation pops up on your screen, take note of that, and that will let you know what form of violence we want you to be thinking about. And then you'll have 3 minutes to come up with as many warning signs as you can. Identify which one of you is going to share out, because we will ask you when you're done. Okay, does that make sense? Do we have any questions about the instructions?
We are actually going to have 3 breakout rooms.
Okay. I don't do math, so, you know.
Oh, it's okay. We had some changes. That being said, we're doing domestic violence, sexual assault, child abuse, and neglect, but we'll discuss stalking as a whole group when we return as well.
Problem solver, Amber. Okay, so think of those warning signs that you see as an outside individual. And we'll report back shortly.
Sorry, Emily, let me.
So am I in a breakout room with you all?
Nope. Here you go. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Okay. Gotcha.
Sorry, technical difficulties, you know.
Yeah. Truth be told, I saw that Ian thought it was Erin
Oh,
and did add her to a room.
I
I saw breakout rooms and I was like, I didn't set up the breakout room. So I'm like, you're talking. I was like, keep talking. Still
yeah.
making them.
I was just gonna say they're the most stressful to set up breakout rooms.
And then someone's like, I'm leaving. I was like, I gotta redo them again.
You did great.
yeah.
How long was I supposed to put it in for?
About 3 minutes, 4 minutes, fine.
Put
Whatever.
them for 5 so we can pull them out whenever.
Yeah, that's fine. I said I have 11:47, so if we did like 11:50 now, that would be a little over 3 minutes, but so that would be, I just like I need to pay attention to what time, like a number.
Mhm.
So you did your math fine, Kylie. It was that we counted ourselves in it.
Gotcha. Yeah. That makes sense. I was like, yeah, I was looking at like 9 divided by a few people, but yeah, you're right. That's
I'm gonna step away for just a minute. I will be right back.
you're fine. I will say the random breakouts is always a lot easier than mental health first aid breakouts. Stress me out. And if you have it done quote unquote correctly so that they have access to the breakout room the whole time, that's just an added, or like to the virtual hallways so they have access to breakout rooms the whole time. So much added stress. Yeah, I'm.
You can see my screen okay and everything.
You're really quiet.
Pace that I'm.
There you are.
You can see my screen and everything, and the pace of changing your slides is good.
Oh yeah, you're fine. Yep.
I'm gonna bring them back in. Or you want me to bring them in right at?
I can't hear you again.
You want me to bring them back right at 150
Yeah.
or
yeah,
1150?
Yep, that'd be fine. And so then we'll ask them, like as a after each group shares, ask the like as a whole, okay, what warning signs do you think would be of stalking for a couple minutes, and then okay, perfect.
I've had that happen in person before.
All right, it looks like folks are making it back. So do we have a volunteer
We
group?
still need 2 groups coming back.
Oh, okay, I didn't scroll far enough, my bad.
And now you can, sorry.
There's
Now
more
everyone's
people. All right. I clicked it once and I was like, yeah, there are people here. Okay, great. Now that everybody is back, let me ask if we have a volunteer who would like to go first to share out for your group. Tell us what your form of violence was and then the warning signs that you came up with.
I'll share out. I missed the beginning of our conversation, so I'm not sure what our form of violence was. I apologize. But our warning signs were bruises, change in behavior, weight loss, lack of sleep, substance abuse, compulsive behavior, isolation, self-harm, depression, and anxiety.
Okay. What, if we had to take a guess, what form of violence do we think they were discussing? And not just you, but anybody.
You can put
Thought?
it in the chat. Too.
Oh yeah, you can put it in the chat. Mhm. What form of violence might that be a warning signs of? Child abuse and neglect is a guess. And I would say that a lot of those would fit. My first thought was domestic violence. So would somebody from, I believe it's Emily, apologize if that's not quite. Somebody from her group want to share which form of violence you guys had?
We had child abuse and neglect.
Okay, sounds good. Would somebody from our next group like to share?
Sure, I will go ahead.
Okay.
So we came up with like a fear response to either a certain person or group of people, being distant and not engaging in meaningful conversations or other relationships, and subversiveness to, again, a specific person or to people in general.
Okay. And what was your form of violence? I think I know, but.
Ours was sexual assault.
Yeah. That makes sense that some anxiety or reduced desire to spend time with people or a specific person or people Yep, I would say that. Would that be before or after something has happened, perhaps?
My thought was after.
Okay. Okay, so maybe a sign that somebody has had some experience in that. Okay.
Yeah.
Alrighty. And our next group?
I guess that would be me and another person, Darlene. She doesn't have a mic, so it's pretty well me. But ours were lying, Stockholm syndrome, not talking with family and friends, no control over financials, lack of general control over their life, not coming over or going anywhere, pretty well staying at home all the time.
Okay, so some of those kind of controlling behaviors might be an indication that something is going on and might escalate further in this, in their situation.
Right.
Okay. That sounds a lot like domestic violence to me. Is that correct?
Ours was overprotective of the abuser.
That's another sign.
Oh,
But yes,
Okay.
they had domestic.
That's just what the thing said. So we went with like, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
no, not a problem. Not a problem. Okay, we're just talking about, okay. Yeah, we're just talking about our signs, no problem. So those were a lot of signs that somebody may have experienced some form of abuse or been sexually assaulted, some signs of controlling behavior that and that overprotection of an abuser, like trying to defend somebody to other people, might be a sign that something bigger is going on or that something might escalate. So we're going to do this last one together, stalking, and I want everybody to kind of think about prior to what might be an indication that somebody is going to be stalked, or like those beginning activities or actions that you might see that mean that somebody could potentially be in danger of a stalker. What and you can put in the chat or you can unmute. What signs might you think would indicate that your coworker or a friend are going to be stalked by someone? An emotional breakup. Yeah, absolutely. Nervousness, fidgeting. Could be that they are apprehensive about breaking up with somebody who maybe has had some controlling behaviors. Receiving unwanted texts. Absolutely. Somebody's being very possessive of them. Could be, saying things like, oh, I can't live without you. I don't, where are you going? I don't want to live without you. An individual might stop going to activities that they enjoyed as a way to avoid that person, to not have to see them again. And if there's a reason that they're avoiding that person, if they're avoiding that person, there's probably a pretty good reason why. Absolutely. If you start seeing a person that maybe an ex still hanging around sometimes, like in their neighborhood or at local areas you frequent, you might be curious as to why that person chooses to keep coming around, and it might be because they are trying to check up on their ex. Could be seeing things on social media. They're frequently liking pictures, commenting things, sending them messages. Okay, great job. So those are kind of we've kind of broken down and kind of understood a lot of what goes on in each of those 4 forms of violence. So I am going to hand it back over to Amber.
Thank you, Kylie. So now that we know what red dots are and kind of how to have that view as a bystander of some signs we might see from both individual having violence put on them or someone who may be doing the violence, we're now going to look at what a single green dot can do to our community. in the middle of all those red dots. So in our metaphor, if a problem is a red dot behavior, the solution is green dot behaviors. A green dot is something we can do to stop red dots from happening. A green dot does not have to be a big thing. It can be a small thing, just like opening a new social media account. So we're first going to talk about reactive green dots. And so these are going to be green dots that happen in a moment that we're observing those signs we just discussed of violence potentially occurring or already occurring in our communities. A green dot is someone's choice to check on a friend or family member they are worried about, saying, hey, I've been worried about you since you have been in this new relationship. I just want to know I'm here for you. A green dot is when someone chooses to pull someone aside and check in when they see a situation that makes them uncomfortable. For example, come to the bathroom with me. Are you okay? A green dot is giving someone a ride home, or telling someone to back off, or sharing your concern with a faith leader, or letting the bartender know that there might be something high risk going on. A green dot is spilling a drink or asking for directions or starting a conversation to diffuse a situation that is escalating. Just like social media created change one post at a time, sexual assault, domestic violence, stalking, child abuse can be reduced one green dot at a time. When enough of us do our part, the green dots will outnumber the red dots and less people in our communities will be hurt. So with that, Kylie's going to introduce some barriers we might have to doing the green dots in our lives.
Yes, it would be absolutely wonderful if we could just, start a catchy campaign called like "Go Do Green Dots," and it would just magically make people start intervening in any situation they saw. But the reality is, it's hard to do green dots. When you see a red dot going on, there's a lot of things that go on in your head. It can be intimidating. Even if you want to do something, what do you do? A lot of us don't practice that scenario in our head. So we're going to do that today. We're going to think about ways that we could interact or interject during a red dot. But first we have to understand why that hesitancy is there. And it's perfectly normal. That's what we call our barriers. So we have two types of barriers that impact all of us. First, we have personal barriers. So for instance, being introverted, being afraid of physical escalation of violence or retaliation, feeling unsure, nobody likes to correct somebody who's right, not wanting to make a scene or embarrass yourself. And then we have relationship or social barriers. Yes, we see that if anyone watches What Would You Do? Yes, absolutely. You can tell the uncomfortableness of all of those people who watch something happen. They're like, oh, is this like what's happening? But then they don't really know what to do all the time, right? People are taken by surprise and unsure. They don't feel like it's good. They don't like it, but they don't know what to do. So you're exactly right. That's exactly what we're talking about. So these social barriers would be not wanting to break an unspoken rule in your friend group, being perceived as a squeaky wheel, or feeling uncomfortable confronting a family member or a friend, right? There might be some power dynamics in there. So I will share that relational and social barriers have stopped me before. I was a young adult. I was young, but I was, older than the people involved. I was sitting in church one day and this newer family was there, and it was a grandmother, like an older grandmother who was raising young children. I think there was twin boys and another girl, and they were all about the same age. She was probably very overwhelmed with the responsibility she had. She wanted them to be quiet and to sit still, things that young children are not great at anyway. And she would just, swat them. Oh, stop doing that. Oh, stop doing that. And every time I was freaking out more and more on the inside. But, you don't tell somebody else how to raise their kids. You don't get involved. It's the middle of church. So I'm not really supposed to be talking anyway. There's all these other people, somebody else will do something. All those things were going on in my head. So I just froze. I didn't do anything. So it happens to all of us. So no matter what your barriers are, we know that they are not going to just disappear, right? They won't just instantly be fixed. So we want to work with what you have, like the barriers you have now. Being an introverted person, you're going to leave this workshop still being an introverted person, right? So what you have now is what you will still have. So we want to think about green dots that are the most realistic for you. So thinking about the barriers that you have, and then we're going to talk about what green dots might work best, or you're going to think about for yourself what green dots might work best given the barriers that you have. So we're going to run through some scenarios and think about what barriers may impact people, somebody in general, okay? So the first one here says you're at a local restaurant and notice a couple fighting loudly. You are concerned someone will get hurt. What's a barrier someone might have?
So Kylie, we're going to read both scenarios first because when I launched the poll, they're both on there.
Oh, okay.
So we can go through them both first and then I'll launch the poll.
Okay. And then a close friend of yours seemed obsessed with their ex. They're calling, following, and emailing them all the time, even though the ex has made it clear the relationship is over. What's a barrier someone might have? Okay. So under both of these situations, oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, so you can answer both questions, but they're on one poll in front of you. Okay, great. So if you'd like to answer the first question up there, and again, this is just a barrier that someone might have to intervening when a couple is fighting in a local bar or restaurant. And then the second one, when it's your own friend who is maybe a little obsessed with their ex. And I did see that someone put in the chat a barrier. Yeah, I'm sure this was for the first one. When it came in, a barrier wouldn't be not wanting to make that person's situation worse. Yeah, absolutely. Like a fear of retaliation on behalf of that person, right? Understandable. I'm seeing, yeah, most people have voted, it looks like. Perfect. So just to kind of summarize, people, oh, yep, thank you. The none of my business seems to be a standout. And then I would say for the second one, they hope it'll fade over time. So you're just kind of casually waiting until your friend comes to their senses. You're just like letting them be and hoping to not have to do anything because hopefully it doesn't get worse. Yeah. But there are a lot of other answers in here. So yeah, you're right. All of those could be somebody's barrier, to be honest. So great job. We have one more. And so this one, I want you to think about yourself. Which barrier do you think might impact you the most? Those could be your personality traits, concern about others around you will react, discomfort in confronting someone, discomfort in confronting someone you know or you don't know, the uncertainty, fear of your own physical safety. So it looks like a lot of people are talking about those personality traits. They're shy, they hate conflict. I get that. That's probably where I would find myself. And the uncertainty that a situation is not as concerning as I think it is, right? None of us like to be wrong and we don't like to make a scene and then be wrong. So if nobody else is making a big deal about it, maybe I shouldn't be either. That kind of mentality. Okay, thank you all for participating in that. I appreciate it. So as you can see, there are a lot of different types of barriers and we all have them. So when you see a concerning behavior, there is something that you can do called a reactive green dot. This is the green dot you do when you see something already in progress. Everything okay, Amber?
Am I supposed to be going next?
Huh?
Am I supposed to be doing next?
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Am I supposed to go to the next slide?
Oh, no, you're fine. Your facial expression just had me worried for a second. So
Okay, I'm good.
no, you're fine. Just leave it there. A green dot is what you do when something is already, a reactive green dot is something you do when something is already in progress. It's important to know that you have options to intervene, even if you are running into one of your barriers. To help you think about the ideas, remember the 3 Ds. That first one is to do something yourself. Ask someone to stop what they're doing or check on someone you might be worried about. So for instance, I know a lot of people are involved in campus. So asking the student walking or stumbling down Greek Row, if they're okay and safe, would be a direct approach. When your neighbors are having an argument outside the house, asking, hey, is everything okay? You could delegate, our second D. That's asking someone else to get involved. A friend or a family member of either of them to help. Talking to a trusted faith leader, mentor, or a trusted colleague. Tell the bartender or ask a family friend to check in. Leave it in an anonymous note for a supervisor. So I got to delegate in high school once. A friend's ex showed up to the school and I marched up to the principal and I said, I want him gone. I wasn't going to approach him myself, but I got somebody else to do it. The principal is definitely more in a position to remove somebody from our school grounds than I am, right? And he might have delegated it further by calling our local police. I'm not sure. But it's getting somebody else involved, talking to a security guard on campus or at the mall. And I would consider reporting child abuse as delegating, right? You're taking information that you saw and you're giving it to the proper authorities and they can determine what's going on. But you're letting somebody know that there might be an issue. And then finally, we have distract. Think of a distraction that will diffuse the situation or calm things down in a moment. A distraction might be accidentally spilling a drink, asking to borrow the phone of someone who's in a risky situation, asking for a ride, or starting an unrelated conversation. So a distraction may delay. Sorry, my voice is croaky. Okay. Distraction may delay something that's going on, but it may not prevent it entirely, right? But you're giving yourself a moment. You're giving them a moment to calm down. Maybe it'll leave a situation. And you're preventing it from happening or escalating further for now. And that's sometimes the best that we can do. So a distraction, you know, at Walmart might be, oh, where did you find those? Have you tried the Cosmic Brownie cereal? I was really looking forward to trying that out. Starting a conversation, asking them questions. Or it could be asking people at a social event if they've seen your keys or your wallet, sunglasses, whatever. Have you seen these? I'm looking for them. And maybe making them help you search for it, right? Might get you more time to allow things to de-escalate or for people to leave that situation. It doesn't matter which green dot you do. The most important thing is that you think of green dot that feels realistic to you in the moment, right? Going back to that very first, the delegating one, it wasn't realistic for me to go out to this teenage boy who was 3 feet taller than me and tell him that he had to leave. But it made sense for a principal to do that. Okay. So Amber is putting in scenarios into the chat.
Yes, except I direct messaged Kylie, group ones. So group one, please make sure you copy and paste this to your desktop because you might not be able to see it once you get to the breakout room.
So who are our group ones? Do they know who they are?
Darlene and Jacqueline. Group two is Jason and Krista. And then group 3 is Emily, Tracy, and Yvonne.
Okay, great. So save that scenario. You can open it up, save it to your desktop, whatever you need to do. With your small group, you're going to think of as many reactive dots as you can to intervene in the situation that you're given. And make sure you identify someone who will share out afterward. You're going to have a couple of minutes to come up with as many ideas as you can. And try to think of some interventions in all 3 of the Ds, right? One direct or 2, a delegate or 2, and a distract or 2, okay? So trying to keep up all of your options open. Okay.
Any questions? I have opened the breakout rooms.
Okay, she's opening the breakout rooms.
Sorry for the look earlier. My computer flashed black and I was having a moment of like, I'm trying to make breakout rooms and move slides. And that's why I was like delayed, because I was like, I have overworked my computer.
You're fine. I was just like, those look like panic. Okay, I think it looks like people are back. Is that, let me see if, okay, I clicked twice, so I guess that's enough people. So the first scenario, at a party, someone looks really drunk as they are being led to a bedroom away from the group. What did this group come up with as far as your interventions? What were your 3 Ds? Somebody be brave and step forward.
And even if you weren't in that group, what would you do?
Or if it wasn't even your group, what would you do?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you can add that to the chat or unmute. What do you think a D could be, an intervention could be? Direct is harder. It was for my group. Yeah, direct can be hard. So if you don't use a direct method, what other delegation or distraction do you think you could use in that? Oh, okay. Jason came up with a direct one, stating, you look like you've had a little bit too much to drink. We should get you a ride home. Yep. That would work. If you didn't feel like you could say something directly, what other options would you have?
So I can share an example. Kyla, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. The example, that was a real life example that they gave when I got trained as a facilitator, is there was a guy who had had too much to drink and was leading someone up to the group, and his friend didn't know what to do, but they knew he loved his car. And so they said, hey man, your car is getting towed. And that was enough, because they knew that was something really important to him, to distract him, to get him outside the door and with someone else to get where he needed to go. But distracted and diffuse the situation and kind of use that distract and delegate at the same time. And it worked.
Awesome. Yeah, a version of that. You're right. That kind of is both distracting and delegating. Another delegation might be, do you know, they have a, in this case, it sounds like a she. Does she have, a closer friend there who you could have go check on her? I was a twin growing up, so in my small town, like my brothers would have always been around. And trust me, if somebody wanted to diffuse a situation involving me, it would have been to get one of my brothers involved. So somebody that is closer to the person that cares about them would likely be able to diffuse the situation. Okay, let's see what our next scenario is and what options we can come up with there. You notice a couple in a parking lot arguing loudly. He grabs,
I don't think we did that one.
oh, we didn't use that one?
Yeah, we did. That was ours.
Yeah, we did. Sorry.
Okay.
Go on.
You're fine. Parking lot loudly, he grabs his boyfriend by the arm aggressively, and you are concerned about the rapid escalation. Okay, would somebody like to share from that group any of the interventions that you came up with?
For the direct, we kind of combined direct and distract a little bit because direct was kind of hard, but mostly it was just asking what was going on would be the flat, blunt, hey, what's happening? But with the distract, pretend to know the one that's not the aggressive one. I didn't know how to say that. Just be like, hey, it's been a while since I've seen you and blah, blah. Also, dropping keys, looking for the car, asking for directions, kind of that situation. The delegate would be, it really kind of depended on where the lot was. If we were near a bar, there's a bouncer, I'm sure, somewhere. Downtown, I'm sure there's other people that, notice it. And usually if they see somebody stepping up, they'll step up too. And find an officer or security nearby. And then of course, call 911 would be the last resort. I'm kind of like you, my husband's law enforcement. So if I go anywhere, he's there and he can kind of take care of things. But he knows a little bit about this stuff too. So that's what we came up with for that situation.
Okay, I think those are great. If anybody has any more suggestions, feel free to unmute or put them in the chat. But yeah, you hit all three of them. I do think that, in that situation, direct probably is going to be just, hey, is everything okay? And great directions using the fact you're in a parking lot. I can't find my car. Have you seen a red blah, 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 blah? Some, made up car, something like that. Where directions to the nearest McDonald's, something like that. Great suggestions. And then our last one, you notice a group of men harassing a woman as she is walking down the street. She looks uncomfortable and upset. What are your options?
So that was my group, Krista and I. Some of the things we talked about direct, you could obviously just go in and say, hey, she looks uncomfortable, let's stop. If you feel comfortable doing that, that could be depending upon your situation. Another woman may have a more challenging situation with a group of men, but that might be something you do. You could be directing, walk in and ask, hey, would you like me to call you an Uber, a cab, some way to get out of here essentially, and kind of stay there. Delegation, it could be depending on the situation, and you could call someone, but depending on how long it might take them to get there, there may be some other people nearby that you might walk up to and ask them to go with you, maybe to approach the situation, things like that. And then distracting, we talked about maybe pretending you know the person. Hey, I haven't seen you in a while. Strike up a conversation with her. Hey, let's catch up. Or pretend maybe you're lost, going up and asking for directions, something like that, just to kind of maybe give the individual some time if she's uncomfortable, maybe to walk away or to withdraw from the situation.
Excellent. Excellent. You hit on all of them. Great job. Okay.
And the other example, even in the chat, is not in our PowerPoint. So group 3 had, and I apologize for that, you overheard a caregiver calling a child stupid and worthless in the bathroom stall next to you.
Okay. So what do we do in that moment?
We talked about, Tracy had a great idea because she works for ParentLink, possibly giving them the caregiver the resource of, calling the ParentLink hotline where they can get parenting information and support. which could kind of also be a delegation tactic because you're kind of, you know, handing it over to ParentLink in some ways. We thought that, you know, if these words were combined with other things that you noticed about the situation, maybe the child had bruises or something, then maybe you would call an abuse hotline. We also talked about, as far as delegating, maybe asking someone you were with that might feel more comfortable approaching the caregiver, or maybe somebody that they are with, talking to them and seeing if they could step in. And then as far as distraction, we talked about giving the child and the mom a compliment when they came out of the restroom, and kind of just, you know, changing the situation a little bit that way.
Okay. Yeah. The distraction of kind of like, hey, let's talk about something else and talk about it positive, you know, like pointing out a strength of the child or a positive trait or something. I mean, I know it's been 30 seconds that you get to observe them before you do this, but like we can all come up with something, right? I think your delegation, and correct me, Amber, if I'm wrong, you're at like a restaurant and they're in the restroom or something. Is that?
Yes.
Okay. So one thing that came to my mind as far as delegation might be if you can tell which waitress they have or the manager, something like that, just to ask them to keep an eye on the family or something like that to see if they, you know, continue that behavior at the table or something like that might, or again, as you kind of mentioned earlier, like if there are other warning signs, other indicators that something is going on here, that they might have a better view of the family throughout their dinner. But
that, oh, sorry, Kylie. I was gonna say with that delegation, if you're telling the waitress to like, hey, do you have any crowns or a coloring thing that you can give the kids or paper or pen? That way it's not, hey, I saw you and someone just told me in the bathroom that it was escalating, but in a way of like just redirecting and using that distraction technique as well as delegating to get the kid maybe focused on something else and kind of give that parent some time to decompress in that situation.
Great suggestion. Thank you for that. And I love offering ParentLink as a resource. Excellent. Okay, great job coming up with all the different ways we could intervene. That was great. Great job. And I'm going to hand it back over to Amber, who's going to talk about proactive green dot.
Yes, so there's a second type of green dot called proactive green dots. And proactive green dots are things we can do to stop red dots before they even start. They begin to reset the community norms and make it clear, 1, sexual assault, domestic violence, and stalking and child abuse are not okay. And 2, everyone is expected to do their part. So think back to the image of our community. You'll notice the red dots and reactive green dots, and that were done in response. But if you look again, you'll notice the majority of space is actually blank. And this space is open to be filled with anything that comes along, including red dots. Proactive green dots are designed to fill in the blank space with green. If all the blank space on our community image is already turned green, that means red dots have no room. The norms are clearly established that violence is not okay and everyone does their part. The results, less people experience sexual assault, domestic violence, stalking, and child abuse. So here are some proactive green dots you can do. You can wear a green dot pin or a pin from an advocacy or support service on a jacket, shirt, or bag and tell people what it means. You can also know the hotlines and resources in your community that work with violence prevention. You can post a link on social media to a bystander intervention story or video you found on YouTube, or write that you went to the training today. That's always one of my favorites. You can like or share a comment on a similar post you see from a friend. Maybe you know people on this and they write that they attended this training today or that they're going to an advocacy event in your area. You can ask your boss or FACE leader to bring a bystander training to your place of work or worship. So this training today at the HR conference is a way of doing a proactive green dot, and you attending today is a proactive green dot. And then have a conversation or text exchange with your friends or family about how they can do green dots or how important this issue is to you or what you plan to do as a contribution. And this is one of the biggest proactive green dots you can do because it's letting people know about this metaphor and how you can impact violence prevention. I always give this as an example. I am married to an accountant, and he can probably tell you green dot and what green dot means better than anyone I know. But it's because I've had these conversations quite a bit within my friends and family. So even telling people that aren't those early adapters in violence prevention is a huge way to fill up this green space in our community. And I saw Kylie put in the chat, we are available to train this to add more green dots in our society. And we can retell a green dot story you heard about someone who's intervened, spoke up, or got someone home safely. Obviously, if confidentiality is involved, we keep that. But me and Kylie have both shared stories today of our barriers or how we've intervened in some way. And so share those with others. And then have a poster, brochure, or flyer about resources or prevention tips in your workspace, office, or displayed in your home. I have a green dot t-shirt that I wear out when I work out or, or going to the grocery store on weekends. And I've had a lot of people ask me about the quote on the back. And it started conversations about green dot. So anything that has that positive prevention message is a way to be a proactive green dot. And then smile, nod, or say, that was a good thing you did. When you see someone step up, when you tell the waitress about something happened or waiter telling, or someone else that you're delegating to, and they say, yes, I'll do that. Thank them, say thank you. I'm so glad you did that. Or if you're walking down the street and see someone stepping into a situation. Participate in a training or discussion about the issue. You guys can check this proactive green dot off or related issues, modeling that this matters to you. Just signing up for this today and attending shows that you're passionate about this and you're here for a reason about violence prevention. So your list of proactive green dots should clearly answer one important question. If a new person came to your community through your place of work or worship, your family or your friend group, how would they know that violence isn't tolerated and everyone is expected to do their part? When you can answer that question with a specific list, that's when you're helping set new norms. And so we are going to do this by a poll. By now, you know that I like doing these. So I think I got ahead of myself. So before we do that, we're going to have a chat. Does everyone at some point use the annotate feature? You should see a little button. It says, Amber Allen is sharing your screen. There should be a little button that says annotate. If you can't find it, put it in the chat and Kylie will put it on the screen. Maybe. Okay. And I want you to think, how could my physical space, whether that's your office or home, show that violence isn't tolerated? If you can't find it, just put in the chat, Darlene, and Kylie will run the annotate feature while I'm talking.
Kylie
So
doesn't have access.
What? No one has
Kylie
access. Okay, I will be writing these on the screen. So
Unless
for your
you make me a host. I'm co-host, so I should have access, shouldn't
I can try to make you host and see if that does
I?
anything.
So what in your physical space, you can put in the chat since we're having some issues with annotate, how could you make your physical space known in your work or home that violence isn't tolerated in your community? I'm going to put posters as kind of a start to see where we're going with this. And while you're also thinking of physical spaces, what can we do with our technology to make people know violence is not okay? So screensavers about violence prevention and green dot background.
We have in the chat a sticker and a little sign that says you can be anything, be kind. So maybe again, like a poster, a positive sign message.
Positive messaging. I think that's a great example. A lot of times we think it has to say this is violence prevention, but just having a sign that says, oh, they're all coming in quick now.
I'll keep reading. You just the numbers listed on the fridge, a tag under your signature. That would be on the technology, I think. Do we have any others?
We talked a lot about work and home spaces, but what about your car? What could you do to your car?
Ah, bumper sticker. Thanks, Yvonne. Hopefully I said that correctly. Ah,
Forward,
resources saved in your phone, so they can be easily forwarded on to someone. Window cling for your office or car.
one that I haven't seen yet, but has become very popular in the last year is Zoom backgrounds. Having a green dot Zoom background. So we know this isn't an exhaustive list. And tonight you'll be laying in bed and be like, oh, I could have thought about this. And we don't talk about this here today. But someone always says, oh, I could dress my dog in a green dot shirt or a green dot bandana or my cat. So there are a lot of ways you can talk about green dot and violence prevention as proactive green dots. But this is just to start brainstorming to come up with those ideas later today and throughout your time when you're thinking about green dot. So next, we're going to do a poll. And it says, a friend of yours has been invited to a green dot training. And they say, I don't want to go because I think it'll be a waste of time. Which of these responses would you be most comfortable with? It looks like most have voted. I'm gonna share the results. And number one is I attended a green dot training and was surprised how much I enjoyed it. It might feel more useful than you think. What makes you think it'll be a waste of time? I'm glad the community is taken seriously and offering important training. You could say give it a chance. It might not be as bad as you think. But once again, this goes back to our personalities, and you're probably thinking of a specific friend when you did this. But knowing that we can have a response. The next one we have, let me relaunch the poll, is you see something on the news and hear a story and be related to the issue. How could you bring it up to others? So there's a lot of different answers for this one. The majority said, did you hear about the story? It makes me think how important it is for us to look out for one another. And then send the news link on social media, relate it to a personal experience, and then you could bring it to a place of worship for discussion. Are just 4 examples that we could do. The next one we have is which of these ideas might work for you? So this isn't really a question per se of what you would do, but sorry, Pauline is not cooperating at the moment. So which one of these would you do would work best for you when you're looking to do a proactive green dot? So the majority said suggest bringing the training to your group. And I did see Emily had put in the chat an idea for the College of Ed as a professional development. And I know there's probably others. So I am going to put my email in the chat, and then Kylie will as well put her email.
Already on it.
Okay. So if you're interested, we'd be happy to coordinate and figure some of that out for your organizations and departments. But you could also volunteer in arts and music related fundraiser, get your faith group involved. And then sports, sporting events of any kind as well. So those are just some ways that you can incorporate green dots. So I don't know how many green dots it takes to begin to shift our culture, but between reactive green dots, the 3Ds, and proactive green dots, no matter who you are or what makes it difficult, there are ways you can be a part of it. The important thing is not necessarily what you do, but that you do something. And be realistic about what you will and will not do, and spend some time thinking about options that you can do and see yourself doing. Just like each individual choice to like a post or share add up to something bigger. Our green dot choices can add up to something bigger. The goal is simply to ensure that the number of people hurt by sexual assault, domestic violence, stalking, or child abuse in our community comes down. Because remember, no one has to do everything, but everyone has to do something. And now I think it is Kylie's turn. Is that correct?
Sure.
Okay.
Sorry, I forgot to flip after my last turn. Okay. So we can't end when you leave this training, right? This is ongoing. We have to have something to do with it. So please take 30 seconds to consider a proactive green dot that you will do by the end of the day. And we'd love to hear the commitments that you come up with. You can put them in the chat or you can unmute. What is a proactive green dot that you can do today? There's a chance we might end this just a minute or two early, so you might even get more time back in your day to complete this green dot. What are you going to do?
Looks like we have some coming in the chat.
Going to find a green dot background for Zoom. Reach out to someone I've been worried about. That's a great one. Talk to my daughters about this training. I like the green dot background also. We should have probably thought of that.
Yes.
We need green dot backgrounds, Amber.
Adding it to my list.
Okay. So we appreciate you already sent information to my CASA teams about safe, healthy relationships. That is fantastic. Yes. Starting young is critical, right? When people get to a certain point, changing, not that they can't, but changing their mindsets is more difficult. We start with people who are younger. They change our future a lot faster than convincing older generations. We really appreciate you all being here today. This topic is important. And as we shared earlier, it's affected everybody. My story for being involved in this is that it was well, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to minimize it. But I had an experience once where I was being harassed in a public space full of all kinds of people, older than me, men. I know it's stereotypical, but a lot of other people. A security guard was in the building, and not one person did anything to help me. And I'm not even mad at the person who was doing stuff that he should not be doing. And I don't blame the people who didn't do anything, because it's this right here. It's the barriers. It's not knowing what to do. It's not knowing if they should intervene. Maybe that guy was dangerous, then they were worried for their own safety. There's a lot of things that could have been going on. They thought somebody else would do it. But in this training, people now know what to do and that they can do it. And whether it's reactive or proactive, we just want your green dots. We just want as many green dots as you're willing to give us. Okay? So thank you for giving us your time today. We do have a brief survey that Amber will, because she's the tech guru, will either enter in the chat or we will get emailed to you, whatever works best for Amber. But we appreciate you taking the subject seriously as we do. And we hope to see a greener Black and Gold Mizzou moving forward.
Welcome, everyone. I'm seeing a lot of thank yous in the chat, and thank you all for coming today. I know Kylie's contacted a few of you, and I put my email in the chat. We truly do appreciate it, you all attending today, and this whole Staff Recreation Week, but definitely enjoyed having you all here today. And like Kylie said, making more green dots.
Emily, your quote is just everything that gets to a facilitator. I feel more empowered now, and that's exactly what we want from this training. We know people want to do right things. We know people want to help, and we know we want a safer community. We just don't know how. And so I love that this training teaches us realistic ways that we can do something, and it's not too many expectations, not too high of expectations, not something that's unrealistic. So thank you for sharing that. That makes my day.
Kylie and Amber, I will just jump in and on behalf of the group, everyone's already spoken, but thank you for taking your time to be with us today. Such an important topic, and your presentation was so helpful. So thank you for your time and putting it together and presenting it. It's been our pleasure to be here today. And to everyone else, thanks for being here. Happy Staff Recognition Week.
Yes, thank you for all you guys do as well.